Welcome, everyone. I'm really happy to be here with Dr. Assel Romanelli from Israel. Today, we are talking to couples who already have fantastic relationships. And our goal in this program today is just to help give you tools and to build up what I believe is already your amazing relationship. And I think that so many things that used to be innate, let's say for our parents or for our grandparents, they're not innate today. We don't have that same background that they had, that to know how to deal with things, what to do. And so today, in what we hope is the first of this particular series, we're going to be talking about conflict, specifically about ruptures, about things that come up, fights, things that come up in the relationship that are conflicts between a couple. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Assel Romanelli. Some of you know him already. We've done quite a number of these rabbi and therapist events. So I'm really happy. He's coming from Kfar Saba, Israel, and that's one of the reasons why we had to do it at this time, to make sure that it was okay for the time difference. So welcome, Dr. Romanelli, and it's really, really an honor to have you here today. And I'm really excited for all of us to be able to learn from your brilliance and from what you've been able to provide for so many couples, both clinically and also in your talks. So I think let's get right into it today.
Let's do it.
So one of the things that I hear from a lot of couples is we had a fight, especially in the beginning of the relationship.
Oh yeah.
We had a fight. And a lot of couples really feel, and I don't know if it's the movies that did this to us or if it's just in general, our culture did this to us, but we feel like if we fight, we're not good for each other. That's it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've heard you say in the past is that rupture is so important in a relationship, that not only is rupture, meaning a challenge, a conflict, is so important in a relationship that not only is it...
Wait. Before you say what I say, wait.
Sure.
Can you guys write in your chat right now the first thing that comes to mind when you hear a conflict? Put it in the chat.
Oh, okay.
Just type it up. Let's first float it up before we kind of give our version. I first want to flag out that we all have these perceptions about conflict. So just write like one word. Just write in the chat. Just make it public just so we can see. Conflict is what? Difference. Great. What else? More. Shoot it. You can do more than one, as many as you want. Just brainstorm it out.
Void. Disagreement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Let's.
Choice. Wow. Painful. Scary.
Very.
Okay.
Yeah.
Conflict is scary.
All right. Okay. So
Uncomfortable.
necessary.
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 Okay.
Yes. Okay, good. And I just wanted to, because I think before me and you share what we think about conflict, I think first of all, we need to flag out that each one of us has a perception about conflict, and it grew up from where we grew up. We took it from our background, from our family of origin, for failure. Whoa. That's great, Shifra. Thank you so much for writing that. I think that's super important. Okay. Wait.
Yeah.
Mute.
Yeah, we'll just, no problem.
And I think that's the first thing we need to realize, Rabbi Bernath, is that people come in with their own perception of what conflict is. And as we can see, our quick survey is trauma, failure, negative.
Message me, war. Conflict is war.
So look at all these words. We have lots of them. Like I would say 95% are negative, and then necessary is like the most positive one we can find.
Failure, trauma. Look at this.
Yeah. And that's a pretty big word. I mean, think about that. Like we were holding these core beliefs about conflict, each one of us. And think about it. We end up marrying somebody and they have their perception of conflict. We have our perception of conflict. And most of the time we don't really talk about it. It's like a frozen definition of conflict, which kind of continues our whole life with us.
Now I know why we had such a hard time with getting people onto this thing today, because I wouldn't want, if I had that core belief, I would not want to have this discussion today. So it's pretty brave that you're just sitting here
On a Sunday morning, instead of, watching Netflix or something, you're going to talk about conflict and raise up. And like a lot of couples, I hear this all the time. If it ain't broken, don't fix it. Like, why poke the bear? We're having a good day.
Yeah.
Arlette's looking at her partner. She's like, you know what I'm talking about. Okay. So yeah, like, why go into this? Why go into the,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a really interesting point. And you know what? I was going to suggest that we'll count to 3, me and you, Rabbi Bernath, and we'll both at the same time.
Yeah.
Wait, let's mute.
Okay,
and we'll both at the same time say the first word that comes to us. Now when we think of conflict, not when we started. Ready? Me and you at the same time, so we can't copy from each other. Ready?
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Crucible.
Building.
You waited till after I said it. Got it to me. Got it. What did you say? Building?
Yeah.
Crucible. But I think 10 years ago, before I became a therapist, I would have also said unnecessary, scary, painful. And I want to say that I've noticed there's 2 approaches to conflict. There's 2 types of people. There's turtles and thunderstorms. Okay. So turtles are people that when it gets hot, they shy away from conflict. They're conflict avoiders. They put their head inside their shell, waiting for the other person to calm down. They're called turtles because they hide inside their shell. And they're like, I'll wait for you. I'll talk to you when you calm down. And they go back in here. Okay. I'm a turtle. I'm a classic turtle. I grew up in a turtle household. My mom, who was a therapist. So there was this pseudo, let's talk about conflict, but actually we would never actually fight. There was no arguments. There's no libido in the house. The other type is the thunderstorm, where everything's out. Like I give the metaphor from 0 to 100 within seconds. And then from 100 to 0 in minutes. They're just out. It's like they let it out. They need to rage it out. And then they're done. And think about the difference between turtles and thunderstorms is thunderstorms, they just need to get it out. And they just need someone to be there so they can let it out and then they can move on. Whereas turtles, we don't yell, but we'll hold on to that for hours and days. The pain, the insult, the scare,
weeks
the fear.
or months.
Weeks, months, years. And what often we'll see is that turtles and thunderstorms will marry. And often what we'll see is we'll see more of the female will be the thunderstorm and the man is usually the turtle. That's a classic dance we'll usually see. And here's the irony is because the thunderstorm just wants to be met. But when she's with a turtle, or this is what happened with me and my wife for the first, let's say 8 years, is when she'd get a little bit too loud, I'd go into turtle mode. But then the thunderstorms start knocking, banging on the shell of the turtle. Let out, I just want to talk. They're like, I will come out when you relax. And then basically the thunderstorm keeps going and louder decibels, throwing a plate, crying, yelling, blaming. And the thunderstorm inside the shell is like freaking out. It's like, oh, where actually what we need to be learned is that neither of these reactions are better than the other. They're just 2 different, inheritances we've inherited. And part of our, hopefully in this workshop today, in this lecture, in this talk, we'll be able to soften a little bit that dichotomy. And if you're a turtle, will help you face conflict a bit more. And if you're a thunderstorm, will help you be a little bit more regulated. So the turtle will actually, stick his head out and talk.
Wow. What if you're both turtles and thunderstorms? Like, what if you're both a turtle or you're both a thunderstorm?
That you're both, or that you are both?
No, what if?
I find that people will usually have a similar reaction in conflict in the intimate relationships. It's quite possible that relative to your repressed anal brother, you will be more of a thunderstorm. But with your partner, you will usually have a similar kind of interaction. It's just a pattern. I've noticed this.
What if you go back and forth? This person is asking, what if you go back and forth that you sometimes a turtle and sometimes a thunderstorm in the conflict?
Well, what I'll notice if that question usually hints that and this will be interesting, whoever asked that, is like sometimes the turtles, I'll swallow, and then I'm like, rah. That's not both. That's a turtle that's had enough and is like spewing it out.
Right.
But in both cases, what we don't learn, because most of us grew up in houses where either we never saw our parents fight, they made it look easy, or we saw our parents fight all the time and it was never resolved. And we're like, that's negative. So we try to avoid it. But in both cases, we are lacking the tools to enter conflict.
Let's talk about this core belief. the core belief that conflict is bad.
Okay. Please begin.
So from a Torah perspective, from a Jewish perspective, there's this idea in the Torah that we are supposed to be what's called an ezer kenegdo. Ezer kenegdo means a help against you. I believe that there are two types of basherets, if you can call it. I hate that word, but two types of soulmates that you can end up with. The first type of soulmate is someone who just always says, yes, dear, you're okay, you're great, and doesn't help you grow, doesn't help you become a better person. But what the Torah wants is the Torah wants an ezer kenegdo, someone who is going to be a help to you, but against you. It's going to challenge you. That's going to rupture you. So the Torah starts off by saying that rupture is good for relationships, period. The only way for a relationship to grow is if there's rupture. What I think the difficulty is when there's rupture but no resolve. When there's conflict, but we didn't have the tools to be able to resolve it. So I want to kind of pass it along to you, Dr. Romanelli, to Assael, and I'd love to hear what you think about this idea of ezer kenegdo and about rupture and where the kind of the issues with couples are when it comes to rupture and resolve.
Okay. So I want to first start from the world of drama and theater, and then I want to go into the world of psychotherapy and then integrate it for you. The basis for any good play or book is conflict, right? You'll never read a book or see a movie. She wanted to go to the supermarket. She went to the supermarket. She came home from the supermarket.
That's boring.
That's boring, right? The essence of life of drama is conflict. You want something and you can't get it. That is the essence, okay? And if we look at, I saw this somewhere, someone said like conflict, if you want, or up and down, the highs of low, that means we're alive. If, how do you call the EKG, boop, what's that called? The AKJ or boop, boop?
I don't know, whatever they call it.
Whatever they call that. When you flatline, you're dead. ECG. Thank you, Samuel Gabai. Thank you. So the basic idea, and as a turtle, I want to say something, okay? I hate conflict. I've always hated conflict. I don't like conflict. EKJ, thank you. I'm glad this is a sparring conversation about this. So that's in theater, but in couples relationship, the research shows that the strongest relationships are full of what we call ruptures and repairs. Rupture and repair. Rupture is when there's a dissonance between me and you. It could be a small one, like I said something wrong. It could be a big one, like I forgot your name. It could be a huge one, like you said something offensive. But ruptures and repairs, it started actually from researching therapy. And they've noticed the best therapies are ones where the therapist and the client have tons of ruptures and repairs. And the idea of that is the more ruptures and repairs repairs when we connect, okay? So they say the more ruptures and repair, the better the fittedness between therapist and client. And from there,
what is a rupture and what is a repair?
The rupture can be anything from, I'm telling Arlette, I forgot, you asked me something and I'm not talking to you because you're the only camera on. So I just need to talk to someone, right? So she said to me something and I forgot it, or I ignored it, or I made a joke on her expense. That's a rupture, okay? So we're like, oh, okay. Now ruptures can be little ones, okay? Like Rabbi Bernath not doing it at the same time as I'm doing it. Like that's like a little dissonance or a little miscommunication. It could be a big one. And a rupture is when me and Arlette, when we find a way to kind of bridge that. So we had that uncomfortable moment, and then we realigned. Okay? So rupture can be on a micro level, like I'm standing too close to you, Rabbi Bernath, and then I can feel that it's not comfortable, so I take a step back. That's also rupture and repair. But we do thousands of ruptures and repairs all day, all the time with our clients, colleagues, kids, okay? But if we go deeper and the more symbolic of this is like our relationship is full of ruptures and repairs. Now, a lot of us are afraid of making ruptures because we're afraid of making mistakes, because we're not confident that we'll be able to repair them. Why? Because we probably have core beliefs that conflict is bad or that you cannot repair. And that's also because of a lack of play. But we should do another talk just about play, I think. But going back to that, so we need ruptures and repairs. And part of the reframe is to realize is that if you want a better relation, like when I see a couple when they come to me and they say we never fight, that's not a good sign. That either means they're very symbiotic and they speak in the plural. You know those couples, we, everything's we. Like, where are you, right? We're one person, we are one. Or they're just not stepping into the crucible. What? What'd you say?
We're supposed to be one person. Isn't it supposed to be so wonderful?
Or they're not stepping into the crucible because it's think about it, okay? Daniel Stern talks about it. He says, humans are different. Then every interaction is always going to be sloppy. I love that word, sloppy. Relationships are sloppy. It's impossible that I will be 100% attuned to Arlette at every given moment. It's impossible. If I'm alive and present, it's inevitable. Sooner or later, we're going to have ruptures just because we're two different people. So instead of seeing ruptures as like, seeing ruptures as it's unavoidable. And moreover, it's actually good because then I get to increase the fittedness with my partner. And I know this is easier said than done because we've all heard the lecture, conflict is good and Ezer Kenegdo, but like it's much scarier, especially if you're a turtle, to actually step into that. And I feel like for a lot of people, they're afraid that if there's more conflict, and let's name it, in North America right now and in Canada, I'm assuming, the pendulum is swung so far to the PC that nobody wants to offend anybody and any rupture is bad. And then we are basically making everything sterile. So you can't say anything, basically. Everything is so sterile that you're not, there's no chance for ruptures, but there's no chance for growth. Because at the end of the day, if I'm censoring everything I'm saying because I don't want to insult you and I don't want to be too blunt, sexual, aggressive, erotic, pathetic, whatever, jealous, then what's left? Then there'll be no ruptures, but there's going to be no repairs. There's going to be no growth. The fittedness between me and my partner will not grow. Yes.
So let's try to, so I'm a thunderstorm. We just had a fight. Okay. We just had this big fight and I just lashed out at you and I screamed at you and I said, how can you do this? Who do you think you are? What the heck are you doing? And you're a turtle. How do I, as a thunderstorm, because that's the term that you used, as this, very emotionally charged person who just is aggressive towards my partner, what do I do now? Like you're just, I came forward, you went into your shell, and now what do we do?
Okay, so for that, we need to back up a little bit and go back to our model, the model that I work with, which is, first of all, you have to have a lot of play. We can't go straight into the fight because I want to first give you a little bit of the tools behind that. And we will also email you resources and videos about that. But the first idea is, in order to reach a point where you can more easily repair, you first need to have play. You need to have a soft perception of yourself and of the relationship. You need to stop being afraid of having mistakes, not taking yourself too seriously. And I will send you a video about how to do that. That's one.
Well, why don't you just give us the Coles notes? Because I'm just afraid that we're not going to watch the video, and I want to get an idea. I want to really come out of this lesson today with real tools.
So before the conflict, you need to be playful with your partner. You need to have a soft perception of yourself and of the relationship, not taking yourself too seriously, being able to talk to yourself out loud, being able to laugh a little bit sometimes, having this terminology. Also just being laughed at the fact that I'm a turtle, that I'm easily offended by whatever Galit says. And Galit my wife, is comfortable being a thunderstorm. She can say now, I'm not yelling, I'm passionate. I'm not yelling, I'm passionate. But she can even go, I'm passionate. And she can even make it exaggerated to prove the point. I'm passionate. Right? There's a little bit of play there to not take yourself too seriously. The next level is to own your shtick.
Would you recommend that even in the fight?
Yes, but don't premiere it in the middle of the fight.
Okay.
We have a saying in the IDF, sorry to go militant, but I'm Israeli. It's easy, hard in practice, easy in the battle. Like this is stuff you need to work out. It's a gym you need to practice, not when you're fighting. If you try to be playful in the middle of a fight, that's just going to exacerbate the fight because your partner's going to interpret that as you mocking them or belittling them.
Right.
Like the reason we're having this talk now, and hopefully you guys are calm, is that you have this language and you can try to start being more playful before the conflict hits.
So give me some other examples of us in our relationship being playful. Like what would that look like?
I'm a big believer in talking to yourself out loud next to your partner, just sharing what's happening in your mind. And I call this secret service. I'll be like, I'm a little bit offended by Galit, but I want to have a good evening. So I'm just going to keep pretending like I wasn't insulted. I
Okay,
just find like that, we should do a whole talk about play because there's a lot of different techniques for that. But just as an example, is the second we don't take ourselves too seriously, and I can talk to myself, by the way, we name it to tame it. The second I can say, oh, I'm insulted by her, I want to attack everyone everyone on a call, we're about to attack. But the second I'm talking about it, I'm being playful about it, I'm already taming it because I can hear how ridiculous I am. Because at the end of the day, we're idiots. We're all fools.
somebody just messaged me, and I think it's a very good point. It's something I was thinking as well. Is I talk to myself, and my partner wants to send me to a mental institution.
Well, that is the exact definition of lack of play. That probably means you guys, as a couple, don't have a lot of play. And in fact, me and my wife have the whole webinar to teach couples how to play. Because on one hand, every couple thinks they're playful.
Right.
But that's a classic example of there's no play.
Somebody else just said, and I think is a very good point as well, that I would think that kind of self-talk is very passive aggressive.
Well, here's the thing. Anything we say can be used positive or negative. But the fact that I'm saying, oh, I'm insulted, I'm actually more focusing on myself. And my goal here is not to belittle my wife. It's not to be passive aggressive. It's for me to own my shtick, as we say, that's a different talk, but like to be able to take responsibility of what's happening to me. But I'm saying this because I don't want to get into another fight, because I want to find more ways that we don't have to always either we're okay or we're fighting. There can be a wider range.
Are there other ways that you can be in play, say this to your partner without you okay, fine. I guess with you and Galit, this Secret Service thing that you do became like kind of, she knows that you're doing it, and it's kind of you having the permission to talk out loud. I get that.
Yes.
So is there other examples?
That's what I want to say. Like even secret language, even code words between you two guys. I'll send you guys some videos how to do that. I have very short videos. You can do it, but like anything I'd give you now, you have to practice. Code words, for instance, having code words for
what? Give me an example.
Like we have a code word. When couples meet and the women start talking and they start gossiping, the lowest common denominator would be to diss their partners. You think your husband's horrible? My husband doesn't even wash his socks. Your husband at least wears socks. My husband doesn't even wear socks, right? Right, Arlette? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but in Europe, that's a thing. People don't wear socks anyway. Yeah.
But why am I saying that? So for instance, it took me a while to realize that when Galit does that, my feelings are hurt. It kind of embarrasses me. I mean, they laugh, but it's on my expense. So we developed this word. I call it blueberry. And when I say to Galit, blueberry, that means, my dear, I'm starting to get a little bit insulted. It's not so funny for me. If you could please change topics. So for me, why is that play? Why is that play?
Yeah.
Why is that play? Because it's not like play. It's not just like, boop. No, play is, I'm in a soft perception of reality. I'm allowing, there's more room for experimentation. And by me and Galit having this, again, not in the middle of the conflict, but having these arranged, these agreed upon signals helps both of us not enter the conflict. Because I want to say one thing, what happens in conflict? Let's just go to the brain for a second. So we have three types. We have three brains. We have the reptile brain, fight or flight. On top of it, the limbic brain, which is feelings. And on top of it, the prefrontal cortex.
Fight or flight, feelings. Let's just, I don't get this. We got to
fight or flight, survival.
On
top of it, feelings. I will send you also a video about this, feelings. And on top of that is the prefrontal cortex, which is where language, perspective, judgment. When we fight
or flight, feelings, and judgment.
Judgment, vocabulary, perspective.
Okay.
The higher functions of your brain. When you're in conflict, you lose the top brain. It's blood stops flowing here. You go into what I call trauma mind. I will send you a video about that. And then what's basically going to happen is I become a reptile. I become a baboon. Adrenaline's pumping, my heart's racing, my muscles are clenching, my jaw clenches. I'm in survival mode. When you're in that mode, it's very hard to be playful. And that's when we will be giving punishments. We'll say things we regret. We will give our kid a punishment we can't even fulfill. I hate you. I don't know why I married you. All the greatest hits that we later are like, why did I say that? The whole mother-in-law, that's when the mother-in-law comes in, obviously, when you're in trauma, right? But here's the thing about trauma mind. It's because of our neuroneurons, it's contagious. So the second my partner gets triggered, I'm immediately going to get triggered, and we're going to be triggering each other. And that's why a lot of couples can't do what the Gottmans talk about, which is a repair attempt. A repair attempt comes from the research of John and Julie Gottman. And basically what they said, the difference between happy couples and unhappy couples is not that the happy couples fight less. They fight just the same, but the happy couples can do repair attempts, which means they can stop the snowball from fighting.
How does that work?
So they have a lot of verbal examples, which means let's take a time out. Maybe I overreacted. But from my experience, because I'm more of a kinesthetic than an audio person, I find that sometimes that's not enough, because if I'm in trauma mind and you're saying, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, then I'm going to go, yeah, you're right, you didn't mean it. And screw you for even saying, that's just going to give you more ammunition. So what I found is when I teach couples as well, like repair attempt, usually it needs to be discussed during peacetime and not just during war. So when my partner does it, like for instance, Galit will sometimes, she'll do like an imitation of me. She'll be like, now, for some people, it can be super triggering, but for us, sometimes when she does it, I know I look ridiculous. Or she'll stick out her tongue, or she'll start dancing. She'll be doing different kinesthetic things, which for me reminds me that she's not my enemy, that I'm getting triggered. And oftentimes, part of my awareness is also to start, once we have this common language, I can signal to her as I'm getting flooded. I could say, Galit, I'm stepping into trauma mind, or sometimes we call it into red. Like in Inside Out, remember that character, Red? Thanks, San Francisco, for ruining pizza, right? That character, that Red, that goes, the second Red takes over your mind, it's done, game over. So your job is to prevent Red from taking on, and when it does, to time out that. But once again, all these maneuvers, all these techniques are shorthand that every couple can develop their own vocabulary of how remaining playful within conflicts. But all this came to, because you asked originally, what do we do? So wait, so first we play, then we own our shtick. We start realizing, when are we getting triggered? Where am I unregulated?
This is all happening when we're not in conflict. I just want to clarify. This is
everything. Yeah, this is pre-conflict.
Today, when our relationship is amazing, we need to practice this stuff.
Okay.
So we're
the two things that are most important in our lives we never get training in, which is parenting and relationships. So yes, everything we're talking about right now is a gym, is a workout, is for you to practice your skills. So when battle time comes, aka conflict, you too will be better equipped to deal with it.
And it's okay to say, just before we go on to the next thing about play, that if a couple is practicing play, they're going to develop their own form of play. Everyone's going to develop their own form of play, every couple.
So in the webinar that we call this playground, where we teach couples how to play, we have our own 5 or 6 techniques that we teach. But what we do encourage is for every couple to find their own shtick. And some couples are more verbal, some are more audio, some are more traditional, some are, certain things that me and Gali can do, other couples can't. And I'm not saying these are the ways to do it, but it requires trial and error. And what my mission, or our mission in this webinar, is to reclaim play as an essential skill for couples.
How much time do you think a couple needs to practice play in order for it to start becoming natural?
A lifetime.
Oh, that's nice.
No, I'll say something about that. I did not grow up in a playful environment. I use myself as a case study. I did it. My PhD is in improvisation and therapy. So a PhD in improv just shows you how left brain I needed to do to teach myself to be more spontaneous, because it didn't come natural to me. So I can say to you, people meet me today, they're sure, I'm so spontaneous and playful. I did not start. I came up from a house that had a lot of depression in it, was very rigid, was not playful. So it's possible to teach yourself that, but you have to want to learn it. And right. I'm trying to sell this to you, but you have to want to buy it. Because for me, play is the lubrication of life. Everything is smoother with play. Love, intimacy, sex, conflict. So really, we're talking about conflict, but I just needed to first say that before we can actually go.
This is very important. Someone asked, I think, a very good question. How soon in a new relationship do the partners have to start developing these communications, this play, these safe fighting techniques, as what they called it?
Okay, so if you refer back to our dating from the beginning.
From the beginning.
Because play is a mentality. Play is not just hacks to fight less. Play is a freedom to be who you are in life.
So you think don't want to dating play?
We called it play dates. Yeah, I have a video. I'll send you a video about play dates. Dates should be reframed as play dates.
To our singles.
Yeah. It's all about having fun, being yourself, and growing. And when you're in a play state of mind, everything is softer.
And one of the things that we said in those conversations with the singles is that we find that a lot of people, when they're dating, they're very perfect, and that you have to. And when you start that, you can't keep that up. So if you start with a play date, if you start by being yourself, if you start by being authentically yourself, then that is crucial. I mean, you want to be authentically yourself.
But think about every single rom-com movie starts with one of the partners lying about who they are, and then the trouble that ensues. That's the model we see. We see put on makeup, push up, don't eat, drink at home. I ate at home. Like everything is like, don't be yourself. Don't be yourself. Show your best self. But that's not realistic. Sooner or later, honeymoon's
And
going
you
to
want
end.
that person to be in a relationship with you for the next 50 years and don't be
And
yourself.
you want it to be authentic as you are basically putting makeup.
Without being yourself.
Yeah, like this. I'm like, yeah, I want you to be natural. Really? Is that natural? We spoke about eating last time, about eating on dates, but that's a different story.
So,
Yeah, go on. I
but
forgot where we were.
somebody just asked, if you start right away, couldn't that be seen as antagonizing or an attack? Or what if the person gets offended with this? Like, what if it's a shared language?
We have to do a whole talk just about insult. Okay, I want to say something about being offended. And I will send you a video of it. Insult is the highest form of blocking. Okay, blocking is an improv. My background is also in improv, as you can see. So blocking means I'm not taking what you're saying. I can accept what you're saying or I can block you, all right? So when I'm insulted, it's actually part of the holy trinity of blocking, which is insult, surprise, and disappointment. Never mind. All these three things, basically what they do, they basically, right? So insult, surprise, and disappointment. Basically what these three do is they end the play moment and they basically cast yourself as the victim and them as the bad guy. And it gives me an excuse to not
yourself. You're protecting.
No, it's like if Arlette says it to me, I'm like, basically, I don't have to even relate to her content. I could just say, you're bad for even saying that. So I'm not going to listen to you, by the way, even if your feedback is correct. And shame on you for even saying that to me. So if you're, and this is really important, if you are not playful, you attract to your life people that are always being insulted. And the best way to work on that is to be more playful, let them be insulted, but then remind them, reach out and say, I'm not here to hurt you. This was not a joke at your expense. Now you need to be ready that there's a possibility that partner will not want to release that defense mechanism called insult. Now, wait, I'm not talking about abuse or violence. Okay. I'm just asterisk on that. I'm talking the normative, neurotic relationships. So yes, like if your partner is constantly getting insulted, that means that there's a part of you that's not fully playful. Because when I'm really in the play and Galit will be insulted, I can stay playful enough to say, I'm not going there. No need to go. Come back. I'm reaching my arm, come back down or come back up. Never mind. I don't know which direction she's going to go, right? I'm basically saying, I'm come at peace. Don't go into trauma mind. Don't get flooded. Bring back your frontal cortex. We're having fun here. We're playing. Now, this also means, and that's why I said own your shtick, because for a lot of us, especially men, we're actually sarcastic. We're not joking. And in sarcasm is passive aggressive. I'll send you a video about that because sarcasm
is passive aggressive. So yes. Important.
Sarcasm, and the episode's called Sarcasm. The joke's always on you. Why? Because sarcasm, I find, especially for men, it's a defense mechanism. It's my way of basically jabbing you, but smoke screening you about the jab. Oh, I love your shirt. You look lovely. This dinner is great. So what are you saying? Is it lovely or isn't lovely? And then why is it the perfect alibi? Because I can always say, if Arlette gets offended, I can just say, well, I said it was a lovely dinner. I didn't say it wasn't.
Put on their video so Arlette doesn't get.
Yeah. I feel like me and Arlette are already in a relationship for years. Yeah. If anybody else wants to be like the subject of my examples, I'd be happy to do that. So yeah. So just notice that a lot of men will be, well, I'm just being playful. No, you're actually jabbing. That's why you need to own your own shtick, own your own shadow. We'll do talk about that as well, I think.
What if you've been in abusive relationships in the past? And
so this is really interesting. Okay, so that's a whole other conversation because people that come out of abusive relationships oftentimes are deeply embedded in either the persecutor mindset or the victim mindset. And part of our job is going to be as therapists or rabbis or lovers of these people is to help them soften that perception. But I feel that's a whole nother topic. So I'm happy to go back to, and I'm happy to do a session about victim triangle. I think it's super important.
Okay, so we finished play, and now we're talking about owning your shtick.
Owning your shtick, owning your shadow, noticing, am I being playful or am I jabbing her?
So
that's something that only you have to own your shtick before you point at her and say, why are you insulted? Say, wait, was I jabbing here? Because maybe I was. If you are, own it and say it. You're right. I jabbed your mother because I was hurt that you didn't give me the hug when I asked for a hug. Okay, or I a little bit humiliated you in front of the neighbor because I didn't like the way you joked in the party last night at the dinner party about my socks, my smelly socks.
I want to talk about I want to talk about this a second because I think it's really important. Couples that are talk to their friends about their relationship. I mean, isn't trust so important in a relationship? What do you say to a young couple that your relationship is off limits to everyone else besides your spouse? Like
No.
stop talking to your friends, talk to your spouse. But how do
Well,
you build trust? How can I trust you? If I don't trust you in the relationship, how can I trust you in the relationship if you're always talking to your friends about our private stuff?
so my immediate answer would be no, but let me clarify it. I've never actually thought about this. So I'm broadcasting live here, but what I would say is like this. I think it's important to talk to other people because you need to get perspective and you need a reality check, especially if you're in a relationship where your partner's either gaslighting you or smoke screening you.
I don't know what those two words mean.
Okay. Smoke screening means where your partner's very vague and he never actually says something. I have a couple now I'm working with. He's like, I'm not really sure. I don't really know. She wants to get married. He's like, I'm not sure. I feel like there's a part of me. He's like, what are you saying, dude? Stop. That's called smoke screening. Gaslighting is one step further, which is based on a movie from the 40s about a man who said he's going to work, but he went upstairs to the attic and was fidgeting with the lights to make his wife think that she's crazy, that she's seeing that the lights are going off and on. But in today's reality, gaslighting means I'm jabbing you, or they're like, you're trying to hurt me. And like, no, I'm not. I love you.
Almost like you're trying to sabotage the relationship.
It's not, sometimes it's the sabotage, but oftentimes it's just what Schnarch calls normal marital sadism. Sometimes we want to hurt our partners because I love you so much. Obviously, the opposite of love is
Hate?
no, it's not hate. It's indifference.
It's indifference, right?
It's indifference, right? So sometimes I love you so much. I also want to hurt you just because I'm dependent on you. I'm scared. I have all these feelings. Like it's not, that's part of our shtick is to own is like we all have aggression. And sometimes I want to hurt, minimize, belittle my wife, not because I'm a bad person, just because I'm married to her. That's the reality. And if you choose to, that's a core belief. You can, there's even a song, you always hurt the one you love. I find it unavoidable. And for me, it gives solace. Solace, do you say that? Solace. How do you say that in English? Solace, like it gives me comfort, solace, whatever. Solace that I'm not a bad person, because even Dr. Romanelli, a couples therapist, I belittle my wife. I make fun of her, not because I'm a bad person, just because that's the nature of relationships. So own it instead of, I never do anything. I'm an angel. No, own it. So then you can start distinguishing when am I being sarcastic and jabbing you, and when am I? But wait, sorry, we were at a different conversation.
No, but I want to just go into this a second because it's okay. Someone just asked a great question. Is it because you want to hurt them or because you know how to hurt them?
Yes. Who knows my soft spots better than my wife who's been living with me for 10 years? She knows exactly where to stick it to me. I'll send you guys a video about a marathon 2 years ago, the Tel Aviv Marathon. Just a quick story. I'm practicing half a year. I'm a midlife crisis. I'm 40. I signed up for a marathon. I know it's cliche. I know. Half a year I'm training. The night before the marathon, Galit chooses to pick a fight. Why are you doing this? You're not really, like guilt tripping me literally 12 hours before the race. I'm furious. At a certain point, I decide I'm going to run. Okay. And what ensues is a 4.5-hour marathon run where every few kilometers I film myself talking to myself about this fight. And one of my realizations, I'll send you the video, 4.5 hours later.
Popular video ever.
No, it's actually the Pursuer Distancer is the most popular video. That's interesting. Anyways, so what came up to me in I think it was kilometer 20, whereas like I really hate her for saying that. And I just allowed myself to get on this monologue of how much I hate her. And only at the end of that monologue, this is obviously with exhaustion and I'm moving, right? There comes this realization that is like, but that because I'm so dependent on her, because she's so close to me, because she holds everything. My life is dependent on this woman. And that this realization is this love and hate, this normal marital sadism just all came rushing in this marathon. And I'll send that to you later, but I want to go back to that. So the second we can accept that and stop feeling guilty about it and normalize it. So before I say to Galit, aha, you did it to me, I could first 3 fingers are on myself. Yes, I also do it. And therefore it's less of like, how do you call it? Bookkeeping, That's own your shtick. First, own that you're also aggressive, that you're also sarcastic, that you also gaslight and smokescreen. Then you can start saying to your partner, you're gaslighting me, you're smoke screening me.
Right.
But this all goes back to your question of don't speak to anyone else about the relationship. So this is what I want to say. I want to say this out loud and I want to hear how it lands for me and I might want to change it. See, this is also play. Play is carving out a space where I can say things and there are no mistakes. I can go back and change what I say. For a lot of couples, a good signal of lack of play is where you have to be very careful. You're eggshelling around your partner. When you're eggshelling, you're not in play because basically it says one wrong word and we're fighting. So what I just said now, I want to say something out loud. I want to hear how it sounds to me and I reserve the right to take it back. That's it. And I always metaphor, I give a metaphor like I'm spritzing oil on this conversation. I'm giving myself more space. Even now in this talk with you, I'm supposed to be an expert, but I'm not really sure what I'm going to say. So instead of eggshelling or going all fake, I'm just going to spritz some play, give myself that elbow room and broadcast live. And that is freedom. Okay. So what I would say is like this. I think it's important to get sometimes outside feedback, especially if you feel like you're being gaslighted or smoke screened, especially for women who are starting to doubt whether what they're feeling is true. That's a good signal as well. If you start thinking you're crazy, there's a high probability you're being gaslighted. I think the caveat I would say is that make sure that as much as you can, share with your partner what you're going to share with them. And I want to give an example from today. Just an hour ago, I was doing a Zoom session with a woman in Washington, D.C., and she's not married, they're engaged. And I could feel that we're getting more and more honest. And she's lowering her defenses and she's sharing more and more. So I said, how honest are you with me? She said 85%. Okay. Which means 15% of the time she's either twisting or lying or smoke screening, and that's fine. Okay. Then I ask her, what are your percentages with your fiance? She goes 70%. Okay. Which means 30% of the time with him, she is smoke screening, not necessarily lying, but omitting the truth, as we say. And then I said to her, okay, the gap is getting a bit too big. It's time to bring him in. Now, needless to say, she doesn't want to. But why am I giving this example? Is like, I think it's fine, but if you are telling your girlfriends 95% truth and you're telling your partner 65% truth, that is a problem. Because basically what you're doing is you're not building the crucible. There's too many exits here.
Right.
And my challenge to you would be dare yourself to share with your friends anything that you would dare to share with your partner. That could be an interesting benchmark.
I still have a hard time with that. Like, I think that building trust, and I want to push you back on this, because I think building trust is such an important thing in a relationship. And that sometimes when you're sharing it with your friends, and again, it's kind of like the mother-in-law issue, right? Where the girls are going to their mothers with all the problems, but they never hear about all the solutions. So what ends up happening, the mother-in-laws are like, this son-in-law of mine, he's a jerk. He's terrible. Because every time the girl comes to the mom with all the problems, all she hears is the problems. And I think the friends sometimes are also like that. And every time they look at this guy, they're like, well, this guy, because all they hear about is all the tsuras, because she's not coming and saying, wow, we had a great day today. That's not interesting to my friends.
So this is what I want to say. And thank you for clarifying that. It goes like this. First of all, own your shtick. If every time you share, you present a narrative that you're okay and they're the bad guy, that's not really confiding. That's just enlisting them to be in your coalition. There's a difference between, listen, I have the situation, I need a reality check here, blah, 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 blah. But that has to start, once again, always starts with owning your own shtick, which means you're never 100% guilty, but you're never 100% innocent. You're always part of this dance. And I think it's really important, whether it's a therapist or a friend. I think mother-in-law is a bit more tricky because the motherly instinct is always to protect her baby and to cast you as the victim and your partner.
Well, friends are also like that. And someone just said very well, you're building an echo chamber.
So that's really true. But I think the reason I don't want to say don't talk to anybody else is because I know too many couples that have no external reference and have no idea, and they think that what they're experiencing is normal.
So get a therapist, get a mentor, get a rabbi, get somebody who you can talk to. That
By the
can.
way, wait, but also with therapists and rabbis, they do the same thing. And we both spoke about this, Rabbi Bernath, and not all rabbis are that objective. And they also have their own pekalach and their own stuff that they bring. So this is what I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you, before you go and talk to therapist, rabbi, mentor, friends, mother, first talk about it with your partner. If you can talk about it with your partner and you haven't resolved it and you feel like you want an extra thing, then I would suggest to you, first of all, let them know you're going to be talking about it. Don't backdoor this. Say, I need to think a bit more about the kashrut or about this fight or about whatever topic you guys are stuck on. Because I don't want the message to be that if I talk to anybody else, that means that equals I don't trust you. I think you're right that the proportions and the percentages, ideally, you'd be 100% honest with your partner, and with your friends, you'd be 70% honest, ideally, okay? But that's not realistic. Who's 100% honest with their partner? Very little.
Right.
But I certainly push for raising percentages between couples. But for that, you need to own your shtick and let it land and say that, which are different concepts, which we won't go into right now. But like that is the idea.
Well,
Anything that says, because one more thing, anything that says everyone else, no, only you, for me as a therapist, smells like a little bit symbiotic, and it's not always helpful for couples.
I think that, can I say that there's a difference between confiding in a friend and gossiping with a friend? Can I say that there's a big difference? So yes. I think that gossip is off limits. Do not gossip about your relationship with your friend.
What's the line between gossip and confiding? How would you
I have a bunch of friends who are sitting around. Oh, you know what whatever his name is, Brian did today. Blah 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 blah. Or I have Arlette, because we keep on picking on Arlette. So Arlette, I'm calling you out of confidence. I want to talk to you about something that happened in my relationship, but I want to tell you that it's out of confidence and as a friend. I think there's a very big difference between calling a friend and asking for her or him to listen to me and to talk to me about something that happened in my relationship versus sitting around with the girls or sitting around with the guys and talking about your relationship.
Okay, I can agree to that. I don't have any, like, I need to think about that more. Like, first impression, that sounds like good. I think there's more to be developed there about owning your shtick, about, I was just confiding. Like, I think a lot of us are not noticing, because when I'm angry at my partner, I can say to myself, oh, I was just confiding with Tiffany, when actually I was gossiping. So I think that's a subject.
I don't want our relationships to be on display. I mean, I appreciate all the people who don't have their videos on, because relationship, especially a romantic relationship, is very holy. It's very special.
I agree with you, but I want to give the other perspective of shame. Brene Brown, all her books talk about shame. Shame resilience is by normalizing, contextualizing, and demystifying, and the power of sharing a story and then realizing, I also have that situation. That helps people, women, men, feel less shame. So I love this, because now we're meeting the therapist and the rabbi. There's the holiness versus the shame.
Right.
And I work a lot with Orthodox couples that everything there is bottled up. They're 100% loyal to their partner, but they're holding this shame when it comes to intimacy, sexuality, communication, conflict, you name it. I have a couple right now, it comes every week. And like, yes. And part of their shock is that I'm helping them normalize it by sharing. And by the way, there's a reason I've consciously chosen in all my videos to talk about my own marriage. And I even do videos with my wife, because we believe that by sharing our struggles, we are normalizing for a lot of other couples, but a lot of other couples will never talk about it with anyone else.
Right.
Or worst case, maximum their rabbi, and especially more frum couples. And I think, and we spoke about this often, and depending on the rabbi's perspective, it can, that's a lot of resting on that rabbi's answer to what they say to that specific issue.
Yeah, there is. You're right.
So
but
I think
it's not a survey. Some people are very good at the survey. They want to make sure they get a lot of different opinions from a lot of different people. And that's not.
But that's not leading. That is just FOMO. That's my way of not dealing with the crucible. Right. If you're avoiding your partner by talking to everyone and their sister, that's not confiding. That's just feeling better about yourself and getting ammunition against your partner.
Right.
But then we could say that about anything. Like somebody asked before about play. Play can be negative, right? It can be passive aggressive, and play could be positive. confiding or leaning or sharing can be positive. It can be negative. You know, it really depends on your motivation.
Back to our conversation here. We have play, we have own your shtick. What else is there?
The next thing is let it land. Let what your partner's saying in. A lot of times we're insulted because I don't really want to hear, but the truth is our partner oftentimes knows us better than we know ourselves. And there's usually a kernel of truth in what they're saying. So before saying, I can't believe you said that, or I'll give you a classic example from 4 years ago. Galit, one of our conversations, she said, you're not strict enough with our son. You're too soft. And I was getting offended, and I was gearing up for this whole drama of how dare you. I was like, and then she said to me, I'm not criticizing you. I'm giving you feedback. I'm not here to attack you. And as much as the words didn't help me then, I still got a little bit triggered, but she stayed calm and she didn't get triggered with me. She held on to herself, and then I let it land, and she was right. So ironically, letting it land prevents fights because because a lot of us have this core belief, either your truth or my truth. And if I agree with you, that means that everything I said is wrong. No. Right. Elu ve'elu, both of these are part of raising differentiation is by me letting it land, I'm not erasing who I am. I'm actually accepting influence, which is another trait that the Gottmans found that makes happy relationships. Couples where, especially the man, accepts influence and is listening and is allowing himself to be changed by the feedback is going to create a happier marriage. So play, own your shtick, let it land. And the last thing is say the thing. Say what's happening in your mind for good and for bad. Try to start with more of the good than the bad. But part of it is being direct and saying it.
Say the thing.
Say the thing.
Yeah.
But that's the order. Because you can only say the thing after you've been playful, after you've
the thing first, holding it in, right? You don't want to hold it in.
No reason to hold it in, because then you're just becoming bitter, and the tabs just get longer and longer.
I want to talk about the actual fight. I think this is really important.
And now we can go back. After we've done all this, let's go back to the fight. Yeah.
I think we'll talk about the fight. So one of the things that my mother has always told me, and she talks about this quite a bit, is about what she calls fighting dirty. That couples, what they do when they fight, because they know how to push each other's buttons, what they do is they fight dirty. They say, you always do this.
Yeah.
Or you know, they go, or they push the buttons, they go below the belt, they know how to do it. So when they're fighting, they use the ammunition of everything they know about the other person to get at them, to make sure this is a jab that you're going to remember for the next 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Go on.
So
what's the question?
So I want to just kind of open this up, is that very often, because we're in a relationship, we know how to really fight well. Like if we want to defend ourselves, especially if we're lawyers in our own relationship, if we want to defend ourselves, we know exactly which button to press, and that's going to get that reaction from our partner.
Right. Yeah. You know, Stevie Wonder says, all is fair in love and war.
I don't think so. I don't think all is fair. I think that there needs to be rules to the battle.
I agree. But you know what? I live in the land of reality. And in the land of reality, as much as I don't want to, sometimes I'm going to bust out the old, you're just like your mother. Twist the knife in the heart. So here's the thing. If you have play, own your shit, let it land, say the thing. So when I do, it's inevitable. Sooner or later, I'm going to stick it in. You're just like your mother. Sorry. Because I'm human. Because sometimes I'm so flooded, I lose my prefrontal cortex. And I say it. Just like how many of us have said to our kids horrible things, which we never should have said, right? I know Rabbi Bernath never did this, but I do this all the time. I will say the sentences I tell my clients never to say because I'm triggered, because I don't have a frontal cortex. I'm literally a baboon. So I love it. I agree with you. Never fight dirty. Okay, let's go to reality land. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. So obviously the easiest thing is to say, I'm sorry. You're not like your mother. Your mother's much worse than you. Semi jab, another fight. No. So I think what I want to say about that is, like, if we realize and we accept that there's normal marital sadism, and sometimes I'm going to go for the jugular, but we have the play and the ownership foundation, and the governments talk about 5-to-1, 5 positive interactions for every negative one. So
So you
if we're in a,
build up your bank of positive interactions.
yeah, you need
You
to
gotta have
have,
a cow bank. I don't like the other word, right? It's not kosher.
if you're because it's so big. All right. If your love tank is empty, then I'm not giving you any elbow room. You go for the jugular, it's over. If my love tank is full and you go for the jugular, you go for the greatest hit, which is my mom or whatever your weapon of choice is, then I can even give you a look and you'll be like, okay, I went too far. But that's a full love tank, okay? And with a full love tank, Galit sometimes will go for the jugular, and so will I. Does that mean she doesn't love me? No. But we try to work on the 5-to-1 again when we're not fighting. So when she sticks it to me to the jugular, or often even I'll say, like as I'm going for the jugular, talk about play, right? I'll go, you're just like your mother. And then like I'll realize I'm going for the jugular and I'll do this, I'll go over the top, basically saying, okay, I know this isn't cool. I'm breaking the rules. But if I take it to the extreme, you're just like your mother. Like there's a way to kind of infuse a little bit of play because that's your way of playfully saying, I went for the jugular, sorry.
And
But
you're
I
saying
think
not passive aggressive.
it started as aggressive. It wasn't passive. When I go for the jugular, I'm going for the kill.
Okay.
But if I practice this enough and we have enough of a love tank, if our love tank is full, so as I'm sticking it to where I can realize that, so sometimes what me and Galit do, we call this daggers. We also teach this in our webinars. So let's say she'll stick it to me. So I'll go like, here, Galit, you'll need this for tomorrow. I give her back the knife. And basically what I'm saying is you jab me, it hurts, but I also know you're going to have another one because it's normal marital sadism. And I think,
So what would you say if you had to say, we have here watching us are a number of young couples that are married less than 3 years, or and they're, I know, and they're in their beginning of the relationship.
right.
And there's a lot of back and forth. The beginning of the relationship is hard. It's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
There's no way to make it easier. I'm sorry.
Horrible.
There really is. There is no way to make it easier.
And add to the mix, a first kid coming in, and that's a whole disaster.
That adds a whole different dynamic to the relationship. What would you say would be really, really good examples of ways that couples can communicate, fight, conflict? Like if I had to come out, if I had to say, just go to the exact 1 hour mark, because we're exactly at an hour, and I want you to look at what Dr. Romanelli said about how to fight. What would it be?
Pressure. Okay, so this is what I'd say to you guys. To the young couple, I mean, the only way around is you're going to have battle scars on your back. You can't hack it. There's no hack for conflicts. You're going to, because relationships are crucible. They're hot places where you melt and you're reborn. You cannot avoid it. You cannot pre-plan everything. Sorry. But if you already find yourself there, here are Dr. Romanelli's top 3 improvised hacks for conflicts. I don't know what they are, but we'll find out in a second. Number 1, try writing. I'm a big believer in writing, especially in the beginning. If you guys don't really know, because basically what we're trying to do is prevent trauma mind, prevent flooding. Because once you're flooded, game over. So actually, no, I want to change that. We'll do prevention while it's happening and afterwards. Okay. Here are the top 3. Here's the 1 hour mark. Prevention, play. Turtle, like know thyself. Have this shared language, okay? Know what triggers you. Write it down. If you feel like you're about to get triggered, you ask for a timeout. I mean, we do this. This means upstairs brain. This is Daniel Siegel. This is downstairs brain. So sometimes I'll sing, especially to the kids, I'll do like, I'm like this right now. Please back away. Please give me some space. I'm about to get into red and it's not going to be good. Okay. I also encourage you to write. In the 60s, it was popular marriage encounter where couples would write to each other letters. I think for a lot of couples, by writing it, the double advantage is 1, I get to formulate what I'm feeling. And B, there's a higher chance that my partner will read it without getting triggered. Because the second I say something that's triggering to my partner, she's not even listening to me anymore. When it's a letter, she can choose when to read it, how to read it. And we can do a whole talk about writing letters. I really believe in that. So that's before. As it's happening, Part of your awareness is to know when you're triggered. Sometimes when I'm in trauma mind, I know I'm going for the jugular, but I can't stop it. I'm too much in it. And the truth is that sometimes it feels really good. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes sticking it feels good. There's a release of energy. There's a release of aggression. It's called sublimation. By the way, if you think about it, it's interesting because sexuality a lot of times is also it's a socially acceptable form of aggression, of like unloading energy. It's energy. And sometimes that energy needs to be expressed. But as it's happening, here's my tips for you. One, own your shtick. If you realize as it's happening or 5 minutes later or 10 minutes later that you went overboard, own it. Don't wait. Be the first one to say, I went way overboard.
Apologize?
Apologize, of course, but only if you mean it. Don't do it because you're scared. Do it because you're really owning your shit. And don't say it so they'll say, I forgive you. Say it to practice own your shtick. And in our family, we have a playful, what we call it flavor. And somebody in the family, whether the kids or me or Galit, goes off the hook, we go flavor, which is our way of saying, dude, you're in trauma mind. And oftentimes it's hard for me to notice when I'm in trauma mind. It's easier for me to see in others because when I get triggered, I don't know that because I'm triggered. I have no frontal cortex. So if you can create a shared language where your partner can say to you, Arlette, just let's use that as an example. Arlette, I see that you're getting triggered. Okay, you're a little bit in trauma mind. And if we have enough trust, she can say, instead of saying, oh, I'm not, she can say, oh, okay, wow. Okay, thanks. So then she could probably say something like, okay, I guess I'm feeling that I'm not being heard.
Can we role play this a little bit? Because I think it's very theoretical for couples.
Let's do it. Let's have somebody, does anybody want to role play with me? Let's role play it. If anybody wants to kind of there, if not me and Rabbi
We also
Bernath.
have a lot of questions coming in, so I want to get to those. And please continue. You can private message me your questions. I will get to all of them.
So let's get to questions because I want us to get, but okay, so what's the role play again?
I want to role play this idea like of this conflict and how this kind of works in action. I mean, I don't mind role playing it with you. I know it's not, it won't be the same. It's just me and you the whole time, two talking.
Yeah, because two men talking for exactly. Two white men talking for an hour, 2 hours. Yeah, let's mix it up. But if nobody else wants to, it's fine. But that's what I want to say. So wait, let me just finish the pre, during, and after. So the during would be to apologize, say it for yourself, own your shtick. Don't expect them to forgive because they're also triggered. Make sure that you're not, obviously step away from violence. Don't be too close to them. Step away, time out. Because when I'm in trauma mind and someone's in my face, you can see this with kids. They'll immediately just hit you because that's how we defend ourselves. So to prevent the smack or the push, or like violence, no, just step back, time out, peace out, take a drink, take a walk, exercise, eat something. In general, I think 70%. This is as Gali called, this is man data, unsubstantiated data by a man. I'm assuming that 40% of your fights are because you're hangry, because you're hungry. There's a high probability you're fighting because one of you is hungry.
Wow.
I've just noticed that a lot. Yeah. So eat. Okay. But own your shtick as it's happening. Afterwards, when the fight's over, this is really important. I want to say this as well. Come back to it. A lot of couples, the fight gets over and they never come back to it, but that it's still being kept. It's being book kept. I don't know how to say it. It's being
written down, whatever it is.
Yeah, like the tab is still running.
Yeah.
And the longer you don't resolve it, that is going to be the fuel for the next fight. The trigger gets shorter and shorter. And it's also really important next to kids. If you're fighting next to the kids, which I think is important, you have to make up next to the kids. You have to teach them what repair looks like. And if you don't know how to repair after a fight, it's time for therapy or counseling because it's an important skill to learn how to fight. And it's just as important to learn how to repair a fight.
And would you say that every couple repairs differently? And that's why you have to learn it?
Yes. And for a lot of couples, because the tab is so long by the time they reach me, maybe it's different with you, there's no trust. And each partner is like, okay, you show me your cards, I'll show you my cards. And then we go into this whole competition, who's going to show first. And it's really hard to build the bridge again. And sometimes what they need is somebody from the outside who's a little bit playful who can say, what is this? What is this? Kindergarten? Kaki pipi? Yeah, let's move on.
Right.
But it's really hard for one of the partners to say because they're both see here, if you're flooded a lot in your relationship over time, what wires together fires together. What fires together wires together. Like the more you'll do it, the more quickly you'll be triggered. And we can meet partners that within seconds you get triggered. They didn't even say anything, you're already triggered. So you're gonna have to actually rewire your brain. That is gonna require external help. Let both of you rewire the brain, Some of you are pre-wired from your family of origin, especially if you were in a thunderstorm house or explosive or a violent or a volatile house.
Or the opposite, where you're at a house where someone always kept it inside, and every so often there's a
right, and then you're basically eggshelling because you don't want to create a World War III.
Right.
But you have to circle back to it, talk about it, and have a common terminology so we can go back to that topic. Why did you jab me about my mom? Like, what happened there? And if you can come in with curiosity together with own your shtick, then actually, and this Hedi Numi who teach Imago, they say conflicts is a wonderful way to learn about childhood wounds. Because the reason I jabbed Galit, because she probably jabbed because I was triggered by something. Let's find out what that trigger is. And I know it sounds super new agey and it's super hard, but if you can reach a level of curiosity where you can talk about it, you will discover why. I can give you an example about throwing food. This is really, so we were doing this, and when Galit throws food, I always would argue with her. You know, she'd dump the food. We have a compost, it doesn't matter, but like something about that would trigger me and we'd fight again and again. And we were in the workshop with the Hedi Yumi. Granted, it was like a protocol, but what we came up was like, for me, that was one of the core values I took from my parents. Like, you don't throw away food. Like it triggered something in me that's connected to family. Now, did it resolve the conflict? No, but it gave me insight, first of all, into myself. And now, even if I do get triggered, it's not such a big drama. She can see it, and she'll still do it. I mean, it's not like she doesn't do it, but it's not. The idea is that you want to have less nuclear bombs. Turn the nuclear bombs.
The kids' leftovers.
What?
Are you one of the dads that eats the kids' leftovers?
Of course.
Okay, just making.
What do you think? This gut happens from Pilates? No. Yeah. Good. Let's get some questions, and then we'll play at the end.
Questions coming in, and you're welcome to continue to send me your questions. I will make sure that they are spoken about. Can you give us more examples? This is from a couple that's right here with us, of positives in the love tank.
Yes. So a love tank, I'll send you a video, but let me write that down because I'm promising a lot of videos and then I don't remember sending them. So there's something called the 5 love languages, which is gifts, acts of service, touch, and quality time. I'll send you about a video. I just don't want to, basically the idea is what I'm doing.
Touch, quality time, and
gifts.
And no, gifts, acts of service, touch, quality time, and words of affirmation.
Words of affirmation, yeah. I'll send you guys that one.
Yeah. Gary.
What did I want to say? So yeah, how do I fill my love tank? Anything that for my partner makes them feel good. And each one of us has a different love language. For me, it's touch and acts of service. For my wife, Galit, it's words. So I want to be consciously giving her, depositing in her love bank or love tank, whichever metaphor you want to use. The way
he wants to be loved, not the way you want to be.
Yeah, obviously. And that's the big difference. I need to stop giving her the way I feel loved. For instance, for me, it's acts of service, washing the dishes, doing the laundry. But for her, that doesn't fill her love tank. She needs words. So I need to learn to speak her language. And it's the conscious act of filling up her love tank in times of peace. That's the 5-to-1 of Gottman that will give us more wiggle room when we actually hit the unavoidable sloppy rupture.
I think this is so important. So basically, you want a couple to sit down today. If you've never done this, you need to find out what your partner's love language is, how they want to be loved. And so often we love the other the way we want to be loved instead of the way they want to be loved.
Exactly.
Just need to spend, it could take you 2 minutes, it could take you 20 minutes, it could take you 2 hours, but you have to spend some time with your partner and figure out, how do you want to be loved? And if they say, I don't know, well, you got to have a conversation about it. This is so important.
And I will share with you not only the video, but I'll also send you a link of a questionnaire that you can do to find out what your love languages are. That
is fantastic. We want that link.
I'll send it to you. Go on, next.
Okay. I also want to just say that, and I think this is so important, fighting, conflict, rupture is okay. Every single couple, I have never met a couple that doesn't fight. It doesn't mean your relationship is over. It doesn't mean that you're terrible. It doesn't mean that you're bad. You just have to learn how to repair. And this is really something so practical that comes out of our conversation today, that if you don't know how to repair, if you're not working on creating a resolution to your conflict, that's the problem, because you're letting the conflict build up and build up and build up. So fighting happens in every relationship. It's not the end of your relationship if you fight. Actually, I think, and Assael, you'll tell me if you agree with me on this. I think fighting is fantastic in a relationship. You just have to make sure that you repair it. Here's another question that came in. Okay, he's saying yes. Good.
Yeah.
Here's another question that come in. Kids
Oh,
really mess up relationships. So I would
tell me
say
about
core
it.
belief
Tell me
of
about
this
it.
person.
Kids they mess up life. Go on.
How to prepare for the chaos when the relationship is so amazing without the problems of kids. So here's, I guess, a couple that does not have kids and they're thinking about having children, and how do we prepare for the chaos when the relationship is so amazing right now without the problems, the core belief of the problems of kids?
So this is what I want to say is like, and this has been my experience with kids. Yeah, it's inevitable. Kids having kids is a crisis. It's a world war that the couple turns from a couple to parents. A transition's never easy. Maybe we should do one about parenting. It'd be interesting about
Yeah,
kids.
that'd be really good. I think
But
it'll
what
be.
I want to say is this: is like, if you can, as much as you can be aware of, try to fill up your love tanks and have open communication and have this terminology before the kids come. Because what happens is once the kids come, I'm reminding you, kids are always flooded. They have their frontal cortex only develops around 16 or 20. So all kids are basically, they only have 2 out of the 3 brains fully developed. So they're getting triggered on a daily basis. And one of the first things I do when I do parental guidance is I help parents not get into trauma mind with their kids. So the best thing you can do to prepare, instead of a Lamaze class or in addition to that, is learn to recognize and avoid trauma mind. That is the best thing you can do. So when it happens with your kid, and it will happen with your kid or kids, or happen with each other because you're sleep deprived next to the kid, you will be able to learn how to step out of that. And I just want to say one more thing about trauma mind, and I'll also send you the video about that, is me and Galit, we teach our kids these terminologies so they start to recognize their own trauma mind when they're flooding. Now, granted, they don't own it all the time, but at least afterwards they can say something like, yeah, I really flavored before.
Mm.
We're teaching them how to recognize their own floodingness. And you can
Shared
teach
language is such an important thing in a couple, in a family, just having a shared language.
And it's also a non-judgmental, normalizing language. Like
Right.
thunderstorm and turtle is not negative. Unfortunately, what happens, we connect the fighting pattern with the personality. Either you're hot-tempered or we jab them instead of realizing you're different.
Yeah.
Like for many years, I thought Galit was unregulated because she was a thunderstorm, and I felt like I was so much more mature than her.
Right.
And only years later, when I learned the terminology, yeah, I don't yell. Your family's barbaric. I am so regulated. But the truth is, 5 years later, here I am realizing that both sides need to learn. So turtle and thunderstorm is a classic definition that helps couples feel less pathologized and more equal.
Absolutely. This is a very powerful question that was just sent, and I want to kind of give it some context so that you understand, because this is something that comes up in my world a lot.
Go on.
What do you do if you need a certain type of love, but your partner cannot give it, and not necessarily by their choice? I'm going to explain to you what it means, and this is so common. Many men, I'm not saying it's more common, I believe in men, that their love language or one of their love languages or one of their primary love languages is physical touch.
Of course.
And then we have religious couples who observe nida, the law
Right.
of family purity, which a certain time of the month they cannot touch each other. But his
Right.
love language is touch.
Right.
What do we do?
I think it's a very narrow perception of. It's interesting. Was it a man asking or a woman?
There's a woman asking.
Which is interesting because I find a lot of times women will feel like their partners are insatiable, and no matter how much touch I give him, he's never happy. That often the time, and I think that's a shallow perception of men as only touch mongers. Mongers, you say that? Like,
Yeah.
I think it's if both the couple choose to have nida, and the fact that your husband is not feeling loved, it's not always necessary because you're not touching him enough. It can actually be other things. And by labeling him as he's insatiable and I give him a finger and he wants the whole hand, I think that is, it smells to me like there's actually other things that need to be addressed, because thousands of years and millions of Orthodox couples all over the world and religious couples do nida. Are all the men there, uneasy. No, I think there are there and are there. And by the way, also a lot of women, their love language is touch, and men don't have that language. So I don't know if there's a solution. Again, it's quite possible that you have different love languages. Does that mean you're not supposed to be together? No. What that does mean is you need to have an open communication. And I do want to say, if time and time again, your partner refuses to give you the love you need, then we need to have a discussion about that. Because you can't claim unawareness or I didn't know for that. Like, how many times can you claim that at a certain point? You're like, I told you, you know that this is my love language, or that this specific thing super hurts me. You keep going back again. Let's talk about that. And if you own your shtick and your partner will dare to not smoke screen and say, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't know you're sensitive about your mother. Then we need to have a discussion about that. And I would encourage you to say, yes, I know that hurts, but I keep doing it. And then let's talk about that.
I want to make a mention about this with regards to Nida. I think Nida actually helps people who have a love language of physical touch, because so often in a relationship, she doesn't want, or he doesn't want, or somebody doesn't want, and the other one really wants to be touched. Here we have on time and we have off time. And so that way the person feels like, even if the person is not really interested, so to speak, in touching me, this is our on time. And it kind of creates that boundary where she knows or he knows that we're not going to touch for these 2 weeks. And then the other knows that we are going to touch. And it kind of creates that really good boundary in the relationship.
Well, let's add some shadow there. So, because for a lot of religious couples, the woman doesn't want to touch him, period.
Right.
And that becomes an excuse. And that's not owning your shtick.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't like his smell. I don't like his touch, I fall asleep with the kids in bedtime. No, you're avoiding your husband, or vice versa. Never mind. And that's why I love what you're saying, but we need to add some shadow there, because oftentimes that is not the reason. And by the way, if you during those 2 weeks of on, you do fill up your love tank, then most adults can hold 2 weeks with a full love tank, slowly depleting, but they can last. They will not die in those 2 weeks.
I'm happy you said that, because I think that's really important.
Yeah, and people don't talk about that, especially women will present themselves as if they're eager to touch their husbands when they're actually not. When they're resentful or feel invisible or underappreciated or not being celebrated. But that's a whole different talk, which we can.
Here's another question that just came in. What if you're giving and giving but not receiving in the relationship?
Oh, that's a classic.
Yeah.
Is it a man or a woman who asked that?
A woman asked this one also.
Yeah. Let's hear your answer first, Rabbi, and I'll see where.
Oh, sorry, a man asked this question. It was a woman's thing, but I guess he was the one who asked it.
Okay. So first you answer, then I want to take a second to.
You're deflecting so you can have.
I'm not deflecting. I want to kind of. I don't know. I want to let this land a little bit. I want to cook with this a little bit. So go first.
So I want to. It's a very common question, and I think it's really good for couples to hear. We should be doing that the whole time, in all the questions, because the last one is also a very common question that I get. I think I did say that. This is very common. So I'm giving and not receiving. I think that I don't think it's true that you're not receiving. I think that you are receiving. You're just either not receiving the way you want to receive, or you're not satisfied with what you're getting. But you can't. I don't like these all or nothing. We don't live in this all or nothing world. And I think it's a big problem where and what Assael has taught me is using the word also. And it's really helped me a lot in my own life. And it's helped me a lot as a rabbi as well, using the word also. I feel like I'm also giving and also not receiving. And I think that that's really good, because it's not an absolute. It's not like never, nothing. It's impossible that you're living with someone and you're not getting anything from them. You're getting something from them. Maybe not enough, maybe not the way that you want. Maybe they don't know how to make you happy. Maybe you're insatiable, which goes back to our previous question. But
so
yeah. Oh, you're done with the deflection?
No. I think I needed to hear you a little bit to kind of collect my thoughts. I think this is what I want to say. I want to say, in systemic therapy, there's always going to be a complementary level. So you'll never meet a happy person with an unhappy person. So I've never met a couple where one is only giving and the other one is only taking. That's impossible. Um, that's why, I mean, the only reason I asked for the gender is because I see this more with women than with men. And a lot of times the distance from there to going into, I am a victim / martyr and he's the emotionally handicapped is very, very short. I see this all the time. I call this the queen of intimacy and the emotionally handicapped partner. Now, I could see it on both genders, but usually we'll see the woman who's craving for more, and I just give and give and give, and the husband's like, and what this is my claim, and people might not like it, but you always marry someone who's at the same level of differentiation, the same ability to be intimate, the same emotional intelligence. They just express it differently, and you guys agree to kind of split that and make it into the extremes. So what I'm trying to say to you, it's quite possible that you are overtly or expressively more out there, but there's obviously something in the dynamic right now, which isn't which there's a shtick here you're not owning. The person who's saying you're only giving, there's a shtick there to be explored by you.
And what do you think it is that
because I want to say one more thing. If you are constantly begging your partner to do something and they're not doing it, this is a radical interpretation. There's a high probability you're not owning your shtick enough. That's why that request is not being heard and fulfilled.
So it's not with them, it's with you.
It's always going to start with you, because I always choose the interpretation that gives you the most agency. And by saying, well, they're emotionally handicapped, gets you off the hook, then you're okay. And I told you in systemic therapy, you're never 100% guilty, but you're never 100% innocent. I'd rather give you an interpretation that says, if you own your shtick, because here's the thing, okay? I see this all the time. For the person who just wants more and more and is not getting anything, if you were really that differentiated and that intimate, then you wouldn't last that long with that person. At a sooner or later, you'd say, what's happening here? I want more. But the fact that you keep saying it and yelling it and begging it and crying it and it's not being heard, there's a high probability that something in you right now is not solid enough. It's not owning. There's some shadow there that needs to be owned for you to sit and stand in front of your partner and just say it and have it not as a threat. You're not Oliver Twist and you're not threatening. You're at the same eye level saying, I need more.
So really, maybe the person that's saying, I'm giving, not receiving, is just asking for clarification, asking for them clarification.
I would need more context. That's why I want you to, because I need to feel that person, because that sentence can be said in 7,000 different times, different ways. And I work a lot with my polygraph here. So I need to know, like, I think that's why I wasn't a deflection so much, like, I didn't want to go too blunt, but I don't know the context enough. So that's why I'm saying.
What I want to do in the last half hour of our talk is I want to turn off the recording. I'm sorry for those of you who are watching this later and you're not going to get the recording. So Dr. Romanelli and I, we're going to say goodbye to you right now. And thank you for joining us. And for the last half hour, we are going to turn off the recording, and it's going to be, you had to be here. And we would invite you to unmute yourself if you like, or you can still ask questions. But we want to give the ability for it to be off the record, totally, obviously, whatever happens here stays here, no question about it. And we want you to really have the opportunity to share your feelings, because Dr. Romanelli does work very much on seeing people. So we'd love for you to show your video, unmute yourself, and see if we can have a little bit of a conversation for the next half an hour and see where it goes. So for those of you who are watching this in the future, thank you very much for joining us. I hope that you
come next time. Come be live.
Come in person next time. Thank you for joining us. And I am now turning off the recording.